Hello, everybody. I'm Meetesh Karia, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer and Chief Data Officer at The Zebra. And I wanted to welcome you all to our second installment of Tesh on Tap. We chat with a number of other leaders in tech on a bunch of different topics, and we have a fun one lined up today. And in addition to this, it is happy hour, so we'll be doing so with our drinks right here. We'll talk about them in a bit. But first, I wanted to introduce you all to a friend of mine and someone I've known for a while, Danielle Royston, who is the crazy cloud girl in Telco. So welcome, Danielle.
Hi, Meetesh. Yeah, welcome. Thanks. I'm psyched. It's going to be super fun.
I'm looking forward to the conversation. Our conversations have always been fun. We have a good set of topics here. Totally. And you may hear me refer to her as DR because that's what most people call you, right?
Yeah. It was my maiden name started with the R and my married name starts with an R. So no new branding needed.
Awesome. No new branding.
It gets to keep the DR.
Well, let's start with the fun part here of what we're drinking. I'll go first here. So I thought with the Day of the Dead coming up soon, this was a very relevant beer. So I'm drinking Day of the Dead. It's a juicy pale ale from Tupps Brewery here. I'm a fan of IPAs and hoppy beers.
So I have this really pretty label in a sort of mostly empty. This is Sun Eater gluten-free beer. I'm a gluten-free person, and it comes from a brewery here in town called Fourth Tap. And so I actually have to go pick it up at the brewery. It's up on Metric in North Austin. And so, and it's delicious. It's awesome beer, which is really hard to do with gluten-free beer because beer is basically liquid gluten. So,
yes. I've never tried.
Mine.
I'm gonna open mine as well. We'll go for it. It's always a fun sound here. Actually, the sound of this and the sound of popping a wine cork. We should cheers. We do this virtually.
Look at that giant glass.
Oh yeah, this is my favorite mug. I mean, it's touting a different beer here, Brooklyn Oktoberfest, but
that's okay. So we're cheering.
Cheers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take a sip here.
Yeah, I guess my answers will get more candid as we get further down my beer.
That's kind of the idea, right? We can have a fun conversation. One of the things that actually is really relevant right now, given that many of us are remote, I don't know about you, but we've all been remote at the Zebra, and I know a lot of companies are. And a lot of companies are also talking about going permanently remote right now.
Yeah, totally.
So you and I worked together at Trilogy way back in the day here. And, that was kind of the early time around outsourcing in India, right? We did a lot there. I spent a lot of time growing and running outsourced teams, starting in the early 2000s. I know that's a big thing that you've done and had a lot of experience with. And I think we've had experience from different angles, right? I've always looked at it as staff augmentation and bringing them in as part of the teams. And I think I know, you have a strong belief in terms of building remote first teams. And so I'd love to hear, just talk a little bit about what you think the pros, the cons are, what makes it work, where it doesn't work. And, we can talk a little bit about the experiences I've had as well.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest questions I get is how do you build culture when everyone's apart? And, back at Trilogy, we used to interview for culture fits. It was one of the parts that we did on the interview when I ran recruiting or whatever. And I've really changed my philosophy and my approach on this because what I found is that I actually can't live in your world where everyone is together. And whenever we hire, someone has to move or live in Austin. It just severely constrains your talent pool, right? To people who, in your case, want to live or already live in Austin. And over the last 10 years, I've been a turnaround CEO. I go into usually distressed situations. My friends tell me, why would you ever want that job? That's such a hard job. There's easier jobs, DR. And
but it's rewarding, right? It's rewarding.
I totally love it, right? I mean, it's really scary to customers who have bought software to find out that the company that they think is totally fine is bankrupt or going out of business or running out of cash. And so it's kind of like, if you like those flip or flop houses, TV shows on HGTV, it's very much like that. It's going into a house and sort of seeing the potential and reshaping it and and then selling it for a profit or holding on to it forever or whatever. And so it's super rewarding. But a big part of that is a big part of my job is kind of finding the low hanging fruit around cost cuts. And 10 years ago, the office is a really big expense. And if you can figure out how to be really productive without needing an office, that's millions of dollars that just drops to the bottom line that you can either save as profit or use to reinvest in a product. So I've been doing this now for 10, 11 years. And for about, I guess, 10 and a half years, people have told me I was crazy, right? Like, you can't build culture, or they look down their nose on it. I'm like, remote, that's right. That's lame. And there is a lot of, in our society, sort of status attached to the big fancy downtown office, or, the perks that you get in the kitchen. But what I think offices really are is a way to figure out when someone came in, what they were working on, and when did they leave. And I think a lot of the tools that exist today can tell you that information, and even more. It can give you insights to understand, like on a group of 10 people, let's say in support, support group where they largely have the same job, why someone can do 4 times the productivity of the bottom guy. And sometimes there's really good, obvious answers like, well, he was on vacation the whole week, or he's new. But sometimes you can get insights into how people work, right? This person is using, like in the example that I've always used, Zendesk. This person works in Zendesk and totally uses the knowledge base and contributes to the knowledge base and answers tickets very quickly and escalates when they don't know the answer. And this person doesn't escalate and holds on to the tickets. And so as a result, the closure rate is a lot lower. Yep. And when you see those insights of like, why does this group of people work so much faster and more productive than this? You can actually help those people improve their performance. And I think that was what an office was supposed to do originally. Like, what are you working on and how can I help you? But now we have all this like software tools, right? And you can see, wow, people are looking at the same thing all the time. We can automate that. We can bring the knowledge base into a pane that's easier to access more quickly. Yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years, is coming up with ways to make people more productive, and people love it. I think with COVID, people have realized this isn't bad. This is awesome. I see my family more. I'm not in traffic. And so people are like, they originally or initially resisted, and then 6 months later, they're like, this is actually pretty awesome. So
it's interesting. Remote. You there's a bunch of different thoughts I have on that, and one is, in general, like I said, I've always been complementing my in-person teams with remote teams for the last 15, 20 years. So I'm a believer in a lot of the value you can get in terms of finding talent in a lot of different places. One of the things that I've always found is, specifically to cost, that some of the cost savings that you get from not having desks and chairs in an office space, you actually see them come up in terms of communication and management overhead. In that, there's far more that can't happen in person in the quick conversation. It has to be scheduled. It has to be written. And there are pros to some of that stuff, but there is an overhead, and it is a different type of management and style.
Yes.
So what have you seen?
So what I have found is it's really hard to live in the hybrid world, because you're actually doing both at the same time. You're like, you have this quick conversation where a decision is made, right? Like, we decided to do something and the remote people weren't there. So not only did you have the quick in-person water cooler decision that was made, you now have to communicate it to the other team and remember to do that. And so what I have found is you kind of have to do one or the other. Either everyone's in the office and that's how you work, or everyone's remote. And that way you can have like one culture or the other, and one communication style or the other. It's really hard to try to live in both worlds. And like you said, there's just a lot of overhead. One thing that's kind of a new thought in our world, it used to be, we need to figure out, sort of share the pain, the global pain of like, India is almost 12 hours diametrically opposed from an Austin time zone. And so it used to be, okay, we'll do an early morning or a late night, and kind of share the pain so that both sides are kind of contributing to that. And you're not making, the other counterpart like wake up in the middle of the night and things like that. And my new thought is to really start to work much more asynchronously. And you said it just a second ago, which is writing a lot more things down. And so I now in my organization um, really encourage people to write papers, we call them important decision documents,
Yep.
IXD, where X is like an important sales decision, an important marketing decision. And so we'll write it down. And what it does is it really sort of records our thoughts at that point in time on why we made the decision. And it's almost as important to capture what you considered and didn't pick as it does to write down what you did pick. Like we kind of in our organization, the first 10 minutes of any meeting is reading, right? Like reading the document of the meeting. And then people comment instead of talking. And then once everyone's commented, then we start to have a discussion. And it's kick ass. I mean,
Well,
it's just,
I
it's,
mean, you
yeah,
probably
it's
get some of the
completely changed
natural,
the way I work.
yeah, you probably get some of the natural introverts actually contributing more because they're on a
Yeah.
level playing field, and it's not just who speaks faster or speaks
Loudest.
louder.
Mhm.
And interesting enough, on the flip side, and now getting to actually being the person working from home, I'm an extrovert, right? And while technology has provided the ability to work from home and connect, right, I don't feel like I get the same energy from Zoom meetings as I get from
In
in-person meetings.
person. Yeah.
And so, I guess, with respect to the teams that you've changed and converted in terms of their culture and mentality, have you found tips or tricks for, sectioning off their work life from their home life and creating a space for that, for the extroverts to get their energy, or helping people set up their working style so that they can be
Yeah.
productive and not burn out in something that's very different from everything, society has generally known for a long time.
Yeah, I think, I'm an extrovert too, and I get a lot of energy. I'm an energy sucker, right? From everyone. And I have, in the 10 years of working this way, I have the same energy in a Zoom meeting that I even without video. Like I don't even need video anymore. I can get energy from the teams just like I can in person. I have gotten really attuned to pauses and hesitations. There's body language in voice, right? You can tell when someone's not psyched. You can tell when someone hasn't been paying attention, right? You can tell like that they're reading their email while they were in the call. And I think that's like 10 years of training that's done that. And so I think that's number one. I think you'll get that. I think
Mhm.
it's just practice. And then your second question, which was like sort of like setting those boundaries, right? Like on my Google Calendar, I put my work hours and people, right? There's a message that pops up when you try to book me out of those hours. And so people don't. I put a lunch hold, right? And I actually leave my house and it's been a little bit harder with coronavirus, but I will go like to a drive-through or to a lunch somewhere. I put a workout hold and people respect it. Um, and sometimes like today I played tennis for 3 hours. So tonight I need to work. And because the organization is so document oriented, it's okay that I was offline. I just read the documents and comment and I can catch up. And so that works for me when I'm like playing tennis.
Yep.
And that works for someone who's on the other side of the world. Like I have a woman that works for me that lives in Dubai
Mhm.
and they work my Sunday to Thursday. And then they
Mhm.
have Friday and Saturday off. And we don't notice the fact that she doesn't work on Fridays. Yeah.
I think you're like, we're getting to a pretty salient point, I think, which is that it's not, and I think that a lot of companies have started to realize this during this quarantine and COVID time, is that it's not enough to just work from home, but work the same way you worked when you were in an office. Like in
It's
order,
different.
like you
Yeah.
can make it work, but then you don't get all the benefits of it, and you have many of the downsides of it because you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
have those quick in-person conversations. You can't, it becomes very stressful and
Yeah.
tough to manage. And so it actually is more about, you have to rethink and change the way you work.
It's definitely a different work style and a different mentality. It's not, I am doing the same thing the way I used to do it now at home. You're orienting yourself a little bit differently. And we use all these crazy tools that some people would say big brother. but the top performers don't complain about it, because I think now it really highlights just how much work they were doing.
It's funny. I actually just read a BBC article that talked about the types of leaders that succeed in remote environments. And it really comes down to the people who were the charismatic leaders, but didn't have the stuff to back it up, completely fall off. And it's the people that actually deliver,
Get stuff done.
the doers are the ones that succeed.